I'm Adam Dye, amateur radio call sign N4NT, and I've been a licensed ham radio operator since 1992, which was at the age of 15 for me. And the purpose of this video is to give you a idea of how to get started into amateur radio. So this is for the folks out there that are looking to get their ham radio license, and just kind of an how-to. What I'm going to touch on is how I did it. And my way is not the only way. Of course, there's a lot of good ways out there, and I'll try to touch on a few of those, but I can mostly lean on my own experience of what worked for me, because I was in high school when I got my ham radio license. I wasn't the greatest with academics and all that kind of stuff, so studying was not a strong suit of mine, but I discovered I was a little bit better at it when it was something like ham radio that I really wanted to do. I'm also... yeah, there goes my speaker. I'm also a aspiring voiceover artist, and I can thank ham radio for leaning that direction, because some of the equipment that I bought, like this right here, I pretty much had, and it was just something I discovered because I was doing am doing broadcast radio, which is this mic flag right here. Do that more as a hobby. It's a nonprofit station, but I host a weekly country music radio show called Interstate 40 with Chris Adams, and I'll put up my website. You can look and find out more about all that, but I'll stick to the subject matter of ham radio and how I got started. So and then how you can get started as well. So what got me started was CB radio. When I was 8 or 9 years old, went to a neighbor's house, saw him rag chewing with some folks within the radius of the CB radio. Rag chewing, of course, is a term that we use in amateur radio. Basically means we're just sitting around talking, not really conducting any kind of business. Or in ham radio, we do contests and nets and whatever. Rag chewing, we're just sitting around talking, just our circle of friends, our network, back in those days before the internet and all that kind of stuff. And some of those folks that I talked to on CB crossed over into ham radio, and I didn't even know what ham radio was until they got to talking about it. My first impression of ham radio was the 10-meter band. I didn't actually get to listen to it or anything like that, but just folks talking about it, because I knew CB, we were on 27 megahertz. They're on 28 megahertz. They were right above us, and that's all I thought ham radio was. I didn't know it went as far as it did. So I got to talking to my ham friends that were on CB and learning about that. Well, then I bought a scanner from a neighbor of mine, a little 10-channel programmable scanner, and it had some stuff in it. And I turned it on one day, and I hear these folks rag chewing, just like we do on CB, except there's no static, and it was an FM signal. And if you're really green and new to radio, on your car radio, listen to the FM broadcast radio and then go to the AM if you've never listened to it before, and listen to the difference. So CB was AM at that time, and this was FM is what I was listening to. But what really amazed me was these two guys that were talking. One of them, they give out each other's location. One of them's like, I'm here, and the other one's, I'm here. They were roughly 60 miles apart. Now in CB, you've got just a limited, and I lived in the mountainous area, and you got a limited little range of who you can talk to, and the mountains really hinder that. Well, they were using a repeater, which is basically two radios linked together on a mountaintop. One listens while the other one talks, and so you got a guy on one side of the mountain, a guy on the other side of the mountain in the middle. Then they can connect that way, and it really extends the range of radios. You can take a little portable handheld, as we call them, handy-talkie radio, and I can sit here at my house. I live in Bristol, Tennessee, and I can talk to someone in Wytheville, Virginia, which is 65, 70 miles away from me. And with the right repeater, both of us could be on a handheld radio on a battery, putting out about 4 or 5 watts at best. Depending on where one of us is located in relation to the repeater, one of us may not even have to use but 1 watt. But that's one of the amazing things that got me really hooked on getting into ham radio. And all that is at the entry-level license class, the technician class. Back in those days, you had to know Morse code to get all but one level of one class of license. They had what they called Tech Plus, which meant that you were a technician, plus you had a 5-word-a-minute code certification, so you could get on different bands. But in around 1991, they came out with what they call the no-code class, and it opened the door for a lot of folks who were hindered by the code requirement to be able to get into the what we call 2 meters, 70-centimeter bands, the repeater bands, and be able to participate in that, something that was really an improvement over the CBs that they were doing, as far as range goes, as far as sound quality, that whole deal. So listening to that scanner, listening to those folks talk, and I learned more about what ham radio was. I learned about the no-code license, and I was like, okay, I got to do this. So I went to a Radio Shack, and I picked up a study book. And this isn't the exact one, but this is the book. I bought this one off of eBay because I really regretted losing my original my original study book. And so I went and I bought me one off of eBay. The cover's a little different, but what's inside, it's all the same. And I bought this study book, and I read, and I wasn't much of a reader, and still to this day, I've probably read maybe 4 or 5 books cover to cover, this being one of them. I'm starting to get into it a little bit more now, but I read this book pretty much cover to cover. The study method that I used, and this was advice of another ham friend, was I went through and I highlighted all the correct answers for the questions, and I read the question and the correct answer only. So here's the great thing about the ham radio testing. If you're looking to get into it and you've got test anxiety, or you worry about you have a difficult time with reading and retaining or something like that, which I do sometimes. I've got a master's degree now, and through college, I had to keep 2 computer screens so I could read as I go, and I'd do a paragraph here and that kind of thing. The awesome thing about these questions, and they update these books every few years, is they are the exact questions and the exact answers that are on the test. Exactly what you'll get. Now, the caveat to that is your test may be, and I'm a VE and I'm drawing a blank exactly how many, there's 3 different tests we give now, but let's just, for instance, if your test is 50 questions, then you may have a possibility they'll give you 400 questions to study, and they'll pick from those 400 the 50. They won't tell you which ones. You just got to study the whole material. So what I did was I went through, I read the questions, the correct answers, but I also, and me not being much of a reader or not much of an academic person in high school, I read the little paragraphs, the little explanations after each question. And I actually read the introductions and all that to the book, and I really learned a lot about ham radio through that book. And it was Gordon West, WB6NOA, is the publisher of these books, and he's still doing this to this day. But I learned a lot of little things, not just the technical stuff, but just other fascinating stuff about the hobby. The fact that Walter Cronkite was an amateur radio operator, Patty Loveless, the country music singer, amateur radio operator, Priscilla Presley at one time. Folks like that had amateur radio licenses. The King of Jordan, King Hussein, had a amateur radio license. No relation to Saddam, I don't think. But that really fascinated me, that some of the folks that were into ham radio and some of the little things about ham radio. I learned about how the call sign system works. A lot of things that when we get new hams these days, you can ask them questions about, not just the famous people, but like the simple things like the call sign system and how it works. When they get their new call sign, they go get a Vandy call. They don't understand the structuring of it. I learned a lot of that through the book. But one of the biggest and best learning tools that I had to learn about amateur radio was that scanner that I sat and listened to those hams talk to each other. Because one of the wild things about amateur radio is it's a hobby where we get on amateur radio just to be able to talk about amateur radio a lot. And you can learn so much. And it's very interesting. It draws you in. Like I love building my own antennas. I don't build very complex antennas. I build very simple antennas. But some of the conversations you'll hear me have with other hams on these repeaters is about an antenna I built and how it worked or how it didn't work. The really great thing these days is if you want to listen to like your local 2 meter, 70 centimeter repeaters, then you can pick up a scanner to do that very easy, because most public safety agencies have went to digital encoded or encrypted radios, and these old police scanners that we used to get are just not much good for anything else. So if you have one laying around, or you can find one secondhand very cheap. Another thing you can do is these little Chinese radios, the Baofangs, however you pronounce that. You can get them off of a website somewhere for $25-$30, whereas back in the day, the base price for an HT would $150-$200, something like that, secondhand, and you buy one new, you're looking about $300. You can buy these things now. I'm not advocating one way or the other for these things. Some folks love them, some folks hate them. They are what they are. They're a $25 radio, but it's a very easy, simple way for someone to get involved in the hobby once you get your license, to be able to talk, and before you get your license, to be able to listen. There's also, these days, there's been websites that have come out, SDR websites, software-defined radios. Basically, you are pulling up a website where you're listening to someone else's radio. You can learn about the HF radios where we used to talk around the world by getting on those websites. Very simple. Just Google, listen to ham radio, and it'll bring up, I'm sure, a bunch of information. Another thing is even the local repeater talk, VHF, UHF stuff. There's folks that publish or put that out there on the internet for you to be able to listen to. This channel right here, Ham Radio Zone. Look at some of my other playlists, and you can see the nets that we have on our local repeater. At one time, I on a regular basis, I recorded just about every week that we had a net, and I put it on the internet, and I'll put it on this channel. I've since kind of gotten away from doing every week, and then I'll record like special occasions. We have some kind of memorial or something. I usually don't just record folks having conversations, but I may put some of that out there just to give new folks an idea of what's going on. But those are some of the tools that you can use. Back in my day, before internet was real prevalent and stuff, again, you had to buy a study book and make sure you get the current study book and all that. Now you could, and I know plenty of folks that have done it, that have studied and got their ham license without even buying a book. You can Google ham radio practice tests, and you could take practice tests with the exact questions and answers, and it'll score you at the end and all that kind of stuff. One person told me, when you're consistently scoring in the 80s on the practice test, you're ready to take the real test. The only thing for me personally that I don't like about that, and maybe there's a website that does it different, the ones that I have experienced, is you get the question and you get the test question and then all the answers, and you're taking the test, but you don't get any kind of instant feedback as far as if you're picking the wrong answers and things like that. I prefer, when I'm studying, when I'm trying to take the test, for me, my study method would be to study the right material first, the question and the answer, and then kind of practice it afterwards. But it's a matter of preference. But that'll get you started as far as preparing for your test goes. For me, when I took the test, I had to go on site in front of 3 volunteer examiners and take the test. And I had a ham friend that actually came and picked me up and took me to the test, got me there, whatever. My family was either working or unavailable to be able to drive me to the test, and I wasn't a licensed driver yet or anything when I took my test. We still to this day have in-person testing, but there's also online testing that you can do from your home. I've not participated in the online testing, so I don't know what all entails as far as the integrity of maintaining the integrity of the test and everything. But that's a possibility for you too. You can do online testing. One thing that you really need to do, and you can do this today before you crack a book, before you take a test, before you do anything else, get on the FCC website and create yourself a FRN number. because now you will have to have that. It used to be you'd take the test and the FCC would issue a license and they would issue your FRN number. Now you got to have that up front. The procedure's a little bit different as far as the the testing goes. When I took the test, it got mailed in, and I waited from February till May to get my license in the mail. They don't even send out paper copies anymore. Everything's online, and you can find out your call sign as early as like the next morning sometimes. Just depends on the system. But probably on average it's taking a couple days, whatnot, to get the call sign back and everything. But local radio clubs are one of the best ways as far as if you want to go take an in-person test, take a paper test or whatever. You don't have the online setup or can't find one that suits you, whatever the case may be. Find your local radio clubs, and a lot of them, I belong to 2 radio clubs here in the area. I belong to the Bristol Amateur Radio Club, which I'm president of, and I live in Bristol. And then I maintain a membership with the first club that I ever joined back in 1992, which was the Mears Mountain Empire Amateur Radio Society. Both of those clubs meet once a month, and both of those clubs offer testing at their meetings. In fact, some of the members overlap, just like me, in both clubs. So you may you may go to our testing is earlier in the month, Bristol's testing, and let's say you go there and maybe you're doing an upgrade or for some reason you don't pass the test and you feel like you were that close and you do a little bit more studying. Well, 2 weeks later and about 20 miles separation, you can go to the Mears Club and take the test again there. But that is, look up some of the local ham clubs, pay them a visit. I'm sure they'd be glad to have you and set in on some meetings. My club, we present some kind of program after our business meeting, and it's usually a very educational program. I have recorded some of those and put on this YouTube channel so you can look at a few of those. I haven't done that much lately, but I want to try to get back into that as well. There are some other options for you as far as studying goes, and I'm looking to try to put one together to have available at my club, and that is what they call the one-day test sessions. When those first started, there was a little bit of a stigma about those, and I personally shared in that school of thought that it's a system that you could be having a test session somewhere, and someone who's never been interested in ham radio walking down the hall, and you're like, hey, come in here, try this. And they sit down with you for a few hours that day and go over the material. They probably could take and pass the test, and then they would be a licensed ham, but they'd have a license, but they wouldn't really be a ham necessarily. No clue about that. And I've seen it happen. Folks that, not necessarily just walked in off the street, but folks that were like, mention something about getting a ham license, they go to one of these sessions and get one within just a few days, and boom, there they are. The reason I say I've kind of changed my mind a little bit about the stigma that comes with that is I don't want to see folks, and if you're out there thinking about this, I don't want to see folks go and just take the test, get a license, and they're just licensed on the database or whatever, and never go anywhere with it. Where I think we can utilize this as a great tool is as an amateur radio clubs, we can help folks get through the test, and we can be there to mentor them. My club offers, if you take the test at Bristol Amateur Radio Club, and I want to say, don't quote me on this, I'm not an official with Mears anymore, but I want to say that maybe they do the same thing. If you successfully pass your test as a new ham, getting a new license at one of their test sessions, then they give you a year's membership in the club. So my club does that. And so the one-day test session thing, I've changed my mind a little bit about, because I feel like if we go about it the right way, if I've got someone like a friend or my son, for instance, that I need to get them on the air, they're interested, but it's just getting through that pesky test thing or whatever. Need to get them on the air. So, yeah, do one of these test sessions, get them studied up, whatever they got to do, get them a license. And then they're not just thrown out to the wolves. The club is there for them. In the case of, like with my son, obviously he's going to be here and have all of my equipment and what I would loosely refer to as expertise at his disposal. And I'm going to mentor him along and make a good ham out of him, as opposed to saying, here's your license, now go figure it out. Program up a radio and get on there and start calling CQ on repeaters and saying 10-4 or whatever. Things like this will make sense to you. I've had folks get on repeaters and do those type of things. I don't berate people for that. I know there's some people out there that will. I don't berate, I educate. I just, make sure I talk to them in a decent manner. But I just wanted to share that with you. If you're interested in ham radio and you search the term, how do I get started in ham radio? I hope it brings you across this video. I hope you like it and would subscribe to the channel. Again, we want to make sure we're going to be putting more content out there on this channel and really make it active. And I'm hoping to get some more hams involved and just a whole lot of things like that to really make this a good source to go to promote ham radio, to educate folks on what ham radio is, and really keep this hobby alive. One of the things, if you're a newbie watching this, one of the terms that we use quite frequently is 7-3, and it's best wishes. So as I sign off for videos, if you watch any of my videos in the future, I will tell you 7-3, and I hope you will check back on future videos.